meditation is supposed to be fun. It's not something you do as a grim duty. The trouble with religion as we know it is that it is so mixed up with grim duties. We do it because it's good for you. It's a kind of self-punishment. Well, meditation, when correctly done, has nothing to do with all that. It's a kind of digging the present. It's a kind of grooving with the eternal now. And brings us into a state of peace where we can understand that the point of life, the place where it's at, is simply here and now.
This moment is the creation of the universe. It's starting now. If you look back and wonder whether there was a big bang a long time ago, all you'll see is vanishing traces. The big bang is happening now. This is when the world begins. You're doing it. Only you're not doing it by straining. A you deeper than the straining you is doing all this. The same you that is growing your hair and coloring your eyes and making your thumbprints and all that. You don't think about it. You don't strain muscles to do it. But that is what is creating the world. Here it comes. Now. So instead of thinking that the past is the reality which explains everything that happens now, let's look at now.
Definitely don't have a fancy name for the show yet, but it's really just kind of some woo stuff. But I'm going to be doing Law of One. This is something that Alpha and I started on synchronicity and just had a hard time moving forward. And so I'm going to do the series. This is something that's super important to me. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. One thing, I kind of want to save a lot of you the pain that I experienced the first time I went through this. It's a little confusing because they take a lot of... One of the best terms, it's the one I have written down because it makes it easier and they use it a lot. The idea of teach, learn. And they'll say it, they write it that way. I say it that way, but you teach, learn, or learn, teach. And it was sort of confusing at first, and then you kind of do start to figure it out. But to give a little bit of a head start, whatever word's first is what you're intending to do. So if I think I'm a teacher, for example, I would teach, learn, which means you're always learning something while you're teaching, but your true intent is teaching. 50+% is teaching, but less than that, you've got some learning always coming back. Nothing is alone, and vice versa. If you're the student, you're also learn teaching. And so it's one thing that's very common throughout a lot of this conversation. One thing that's impressive to me as well is the group that did it. I'm drawing a blank on the dude's name. I've got him in the bottom. Don Elkins, and it was LL Research. They went to great lengths to get this lady like in a good, happy place. They had love in the water. They had them set at certain angles. This is one of the best channelings that's out there. And this information is something that resonated hard with me. And I think it's kind of more of I don't want to sound like kind of weird, but it's kind of more of a galactic approach to religion, if you will. And it certainly speaks of source, which is something I've always been fond of. Creator, source, universe, very giant, but singular kind of things. And for some reason, it works beautifully in my mind. And there's two paths we're going to learn, and there's a whole lot that goes with this. Certainly don't want to get ahead of anything, but there's two general paths: service to self, service to others. Both ultimately help the same. We're all one. We're all sources. We're all part of the same beautiful spark. But how you go about serving that version of I am, if you will, is up to you. And some of us are on specifically service to self paths. It's a much harder graduation, by the way, much harder. You've got to be Very selfish. And they'll talk about it. Very selfish. 95% of the time. Very selfish. Versus graduating service to others. Just 50+% you spend helping other people. You're on the other side. It sounds stupid, but it's kind of what's going on. And these guys talk a lot about that whole process too. I feel very affiliated with this group in the bigger picture. And I kind of, it's probably some of the reasons why I'm as strange as I am with how much I give and how much I talk about my gifts. I don't, and I'm not going to. And this is why there's a lot of beauty that's baked into this. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it. I've got some of you helping me, and I appreciate all of you guys. And I got the comments off to the side, just so you know. I will take questions later on. We've got 2 of the videos or sessions that we'll be doing. It's roughly about 25 minutes. I'm going to play the first one, take some notes, give you guys a skinny on it, and then we'll burn into the second one, and I'll give some skinny on that. And then if we got time, we'll take some questions. I figure we'll go an hour plus, and try not to go too terribly long because I know we're live, and I want you guys to, be able to enjoy other things or enjoy your family and other stuff. I don't want to gobble all your time. So we're going to kick off this first session. I think I should have actually pulled them up, but it's going to be on the screen when I do the video. But this is the first session. I think when it is, I voiced these myself, so you're going to have to deal with my voice. But again, I was planning on putting these up. I'm going to upload them to YouTube as well. This is another place, another video that should hopefully get some love. I'm expecting this to help in the big picture. But this is going to be a powerful session for a lot of you guys. For those of you not familiar with this, welcome to something that's very special to me. It's called Law of One, or Law of Ra, which is not meant to be like anybody's God or anything like that, because they're very specific about not being God. So please don't misunderstand. But let's go for a ride. Let's understand this. There's a lot of sessions. It's going to take us about a year to get through all these. So let us begin the journey of 1,000 feet or steps. We're going to start with the first few. This is session 1, Law of One, on the Fringe. The Law of One, session 1. Recorded January 15th, 1981. Ra. I am Ra. I have not spoken through this instrument before. We had to wait until she was precisely tuned as we send a narrow band vibration. We greet you in the love and the light of our infinite Creator. We have watched your group. We have been called to your group, for you have a need for the diversity of experiences and channeling, which go with a more intensive, or as you might call it, an advanced approach to the systems of studying the pattern of illusions of your body, your mind, and your spirit, which you call the truth. We hope to offer you somewhat different slant upon the information which is always and ever the same. The Confederation of Planets in the service of the infinite Creator has only one important statement. That statement, my friends, as you know, is all things, all of life, all of the creation is part of one original thought. We will exercise each channel if we are able to. The reception of our beam is a somewhat more advanced feat than some of the more broad vibration channels opened by other members for more introductory and intermediate work. Let us for a moment consider thought. What is it, my friends? To take thought. Took you then thought today? What thoughts did you think today? What thoughts were part of the original thought today? And how many of your thoughts did the creation abide? Was love contained? And was service freely given? You are not part of a material universe. You are part of a thought. You are dancing thoughts. You move your body, your mind, and your spirit in somewhat eccentric patterns, for you have not completely grasped the concept that you are all part of the original thought. We would at this time transfer to an instrument known as Dawn. I am Ra. I am Ra. I am again with this instrument. We are close to initiating a contact, but are having difficulty penetrating a certain mental tension and distraction that is somewhat characteristic in this channel. We will therefore describe the type of vibration which is being sent. The instrument will find us entering the energy field at a slight angle towards the back of the top of the head in a narrow but strong area of intensity. We are now able to offer any conditioning due to our own transmitting limitations. Therefore, if the instrument can feel this particular effect, he may then speak our thoughts as they come to him. We will again attempt to contact. I am Ra. This instrument is resisting our contact. However, We assure her that we are satisfied that contact with the one known as Dawn is not at this time preferable to that instrument. We will therefore move to the one known as Leonard. Again, we caution the instrument that is a narrow band communication which is felt as a vibration entering the aura. We will now transfer this contact. I am Ra. I am Ra. We greet you once more in the love and light of our infinite Creator. We ask that you be patient with us, for we are a difficult channel to receive. However, we may perhaps add some dimensions to your understanding. At this time, we would be glad to attempt to speak to any subject or question which those entities in this room may have potential use in the requesting. Questioner: it seems members of the Confederation have a specific purpose. Is this true with you? And if so, what is this purpose? Ra. I am Ra. We communicate now. We too have our place. We are not those of love or of the light. We are those who are the law of one. In our vibration, the polarities are harmonized, the complexities are simplified, and the paradoxes have their solution. We are one. That is our nature and our purpose. We are old upon your planet and have served with varying degrees of success in transmitting the law of one, of unity, of singleness to your people. We have walked your earth. We have seen the faces of your peoples. This is not so with many of the entities of the Confederation. We found it was not efficacious. However, we then felt the great responsibility of staying in the capacity of removing the distortions and powers that had been given to the law of one. We will continue in this. Your, shall we say, cycle is appropriately ended. If not this one, then the next. We are not a part of time, and thus we are able to be with you in any of your times. Does this give you enough information from which to extract our purpose, my brother? Questioner: yes, it does. Thank you. Ra. We appreciate your vibration. Is there another query? Questioner: I've heard of the name Ra in connection with the Egyptians. Are you connected with that Ra in any way? Ra. I am Ra. Yes, the connection is congruency. May we elucidate? Questioner: please do. Ra. What do you not understand? Questioner: could you give me a little more detail about your role with the Egyptians? Ra. I am Ra. The identity of the vibration Ra is our identity. We as a group, or what you would call a social memory complex, made contact with a race of your planetary kind, which you call Egyptians. Others from our density made contact at the same time in South America and the so-called lost cities, where their attempts to contribute to the law of one. We spoke to one who heard and understood and was in a position to decree the law of one. However, the priests and peoples of that era quickly distorted our message, robbing it of the, shall we say, compassion with which unity is informed by its very nature. Since it contains all, it cannot abhor any. When we were no longer able to have appropriate channels through which to enunciate the law of one, we removed ourselves from the now hypocritical position which we had allowed ourselves to be placed in. And other myths, shall we say, other understandings having more to do with polarity and the things of your vibrational complex, again, took over in that particular societal complex. Does this form a sufficient amount of information, or could we speak further? Questioner is inaudible. Ra, is there another query? Questioner: the question was lost because the questioner was sitting too far from the tape recorder to be recorded. Ra. I am Ra. Consider, if you will, that the universe is infinite. This is yet to be proven or disproven, but we can assure you that there is no end to yourselves, your understanding, or what you would call a journey of seeking, or your perceptions of the creation. That which is infinite cannot be many, for manyness is a finite concept. To have infinity, you must identify or define that infinity as unity. Otherwise, the term does not have any reference or meaning. It is an infinite creator. There is only unity. You have seen simple examples of unity. You have seen the prisms which show all colors stemming from the sunlight. This is the simplistic example of unity. In truth, there is no right or wrong. There is no polarity, for all will be, as you would say, reconciled at some point in your dance through the mind-body-spirit complex, which you amuse yourselves by distorting into various ways at this time. This distortion is not in any case necessary. It is chosen by each of you as an alternative to understanding the complete unity of thought which binds all things. You are not speaking of similar or somewhat like entities or things. You are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. You are unity. You are infinity. You are love, light, light, love. You are. This is the law of one. May we enunciate this law in more detail. Questioner, inaudible. Ra, is there another query at this time? Questioner, can you say anything about the coming planetary changes? Ra, I am Ra. I preferred to wait until this instrument has again reached the proper state of depth of singleness or one-pointedness before we spoke. The changes are very, very trivial. We do not concern ourselves with the conditions which bring about the harvest. Questioner, another question. Is it possible to create any acceleration of understanding in other entities, or are all efforts by the individual on himself accelerating his understanding? In other words, if an individual tries to act as a catalyst in general to increase the awareness of planetary consciousness, is he doing nothing but acting upon himself, or is it possible? Ra, I am Ra. We shall answer your question in two parts, both of which are important equally. Firstly, you must understand that the distinction between yourself and others is not visible to us. We do not consider that a separation exists between the consciousness-raising efforts of the distortion which you project as a personality and the distortion which you project as an other personality. Thus, to learn is the same as to teach, unless you are not teaching what you are learning, in which case you have done they little or no good. This understanding should be pondered by your mind-body-spirit complex, as it is a distortion which plays a part in your experience at this nexus. To turn to the second part of your response, may we state our understanding, limited though it is. So the remainder, of the original audio recording session 1 was not available for the relisting project. The audio tape was reused for another purpose after the transcription. Therefore, the following is a slightly edited version of the rest of session 1, as published in the original volume of The Law of One, Book 1. Group individuated consciousness is that state of sharing understanding with the other distortions of mind-body-spirit complexes, which are within the evident reach of our mind-body-spirit complex individual or group. Thus, we are speaking to you and accepting both our distortions and your own inner order to enunciate the laws of creation, more especially the law of one. We are not available to many of your peoples, for this is not an easily understood way of communication or type of philosophy. However, our very being is hopefully a poignant example of both the necessity and the near hopelessness of attempting to teach. Each of those in this group is striving to use, digest, and diversify the information which we are sending to this instrument into the channel of the mind-body-spirit complex without distortion. The few whom you will illuminate by sharing your light are far more than enough reason for the greatest possible effort. To serve one is to serve all. Therefore, we offer the question back to you to state that, indeed, it is the only activity worth doing to learn, teach, or teach, learn. There is nothing else which is of aid in demonstrating the original thought except your very being, and the distortions that come from the explained, inarticulate, and mystery-clad being are many. Thus, to attempt to discern and weave your way through as many group mind-body-spirit distortions as possible among your peoples in the course of your teachings is a very good effort to make. May we speak in any other capacity upon this subject? Questioner, will you be available for communication? Can we call you in the future? Ra, I am Ra. We have good contact with this instrument because of her recent experiences with trance. She is to be able to communicate our thoughts in your future. However, we advise care in disturbing the channel for a few moments, and then the proper procedure for aiding an instrument who has, to some extent, the need of recentering the mind-body-spirit complex which the instrument has chosen for the life experience of this time-space. Do you understand how to nurture this instrument? Questioner, no. Could you explain it? Ra, we suggest first a brief period of silence. Then the repetition of this instrument's vibratory complex of sound in your density, which you call name. Repeat until an answer is obtained. Then the laying of the hands at the neck region for a brief period so that the instrument may recharge batteries which are not, shall we say, full of the essence of this particular field at this time. And finally, a gift of water into which the love of all present has been given. This will restore this entity, for her distortions contain great sensitivity towards the vibration of love, and the charged water will affect comfort. Do you now understand? Questioner, not completely. Ra, I am Ra. We search your mind to find the vibration Alrak. It is this vibration from you which contains the large amount of what you would call love. Others would call this entity Carla. The changing of the water is done by those present, placing their hands over the glass and visualizing the powers of love entering the water. This will charge that very effective medium with those vibrations. This instrument at this time is quite fatigued. However, her heart is such that she continues to remain open to us and useful as a channel. This is why we have spent the time-space explaining how the distortions of what you may call fatigue may be ameliorated. Under no circumstances should this instrument be touched until she has responded to her name. I do not wish to take this instrument beyond her capacity for physical energy. It grows low. Therefore, I must leave this instrument. I leave you in the glory and peace of unity. Go forth in peace, rejoicing the power of the one Creator. I am Ra. So again, a very strong first beginning. And Carla, so they tried to connect with everybody. Don is a big part of this. He's really the head, I wouldn't say the head honcho. And then Carla's the one that's channeling, right? So they really tried everybody. They're all very spiritual people. They're all, all that cool, crazy stuff. And as it turned out, Carla smoking it. All the stuff where there was words, it was her. When it was inaudible, it was the other people. So that is a big part of what was going on. Egyptians, so they tried to teach, but they abused the information. So I think initially, and they're going to get into this more, so they kind of give us a little fun start. But they hooked up with the Egyptians. They tried to, and some suggest this is when the Great Pyramid was built, was back during this time, and I think they get into that as well. But they tried to talk about this law of one. Now, with the law of one, when you truly understand, it's kind of like a martial art, almost. I mean, there's power in it, I guess. And if you abuse it by, say, turning off an aspect of it and trying to force people towards a service to self path, for example, if you're doing things along those lines, if you're abusing it, you can get in trouble from universe. It's called karma. Now, there's a lot of places where most of us are learning that. Also, there's a lot of discussions around everybody and everything is you. Now, I hope there's some co-creation. I think what that means is the things that really directly matter. Sometimes there's individuals that'll pop out of a crowd like a face in a sea of people you don't know, but that one person's the one that ultimately ends up interacting with you. A lot of times there's suspicion that that is one of your many personalities that exist simultaneously. That we are in control, not in control, but here to experience and learn how to work through our thoughts, how to work through what we are, how we're treating people, how we're being, how we're essentially handling ourselves, for lack of a better way. Again, we got a lot to cover over the next few weeks, or number of weeks. All are going to be reconciled in our existence. It was something that kind of stepped out at me. They said that at one point. And what he's referring to is every one of us, every time we do anything horrible. You could do something so horrible as commit an atrocity like taking someone's life, right? That is on your soul. There's now an instant thing, well, not instant, but it's something that now needs to be understood fully. So whenever these happen, it's usually your best friend or yourself that is the recipient of this thing. So the life is ended. To understand this moment, and you are going to have to live with this. You take on the karma, you take on the pain, if you will, of having that with you. And by the way, some people don't learn, and we got criminals out there that continue to do things wrong, but they carry that karma forward. And for some, that's a hard concept to understand. For others, it's just another life. They're going to be like in a wheelchair or something shitty. You know what I mean? Like the recent thing, I don't want to say it because it'll tie stuff together that doesn't need to be tied. Also, the serve one to serve all. This is an important concept as well, and then we'll hop into the second one here and get the ball rolling on it. But to serve one is to serve all. And that's a powerful statement. And what they talked about when they talked about kind of how they're above love and light, they're outside of that, right? They are, we greet you in love and light. They asked who you guys are related to, and it was something to the effect of, we aren't good, we aren't evil, we're past that. And so the way densities work, we're going to get to it, but just trying to throw some stuff together, because they gave a really good first session. Like they were ready, like, we're going to write a book, and here's where you got to cover some very key points. So we've got this situation where they are like above what they call the sixth density. Sixth density is where everybody comes back. Bad and good comes back together, right? Third density you pop up out of. A lot of people start at the fourth density. When they graduate either service to self or service to others, right? They start going down that path. And then they get up to the fifth density, and that's where you really kind of master it to a degree. We'll get more into the sheer nuts and bolts of it. But then once you come to the sixth density, you come back together. You are now united. You are unity. You are good and bad, and everything in between is now combined. I am all. I've made mistakes. I'm good and bad. I'm all this and more. And that's really where the sixth density starts to go. And then seventh is a little more complex. Sometimes I wonder if that's where I'm heading. We'll see. Who knows? It's fun, though. The whole journey. So this was kind of the first episode. We've got the second one that's going to be coming up, and we'll take some notes and see where we get with that. And again, I apologize for the people that are in comments. I am not doing a really good job paying attention, because I'm just so desperately trying to stay in the moment, if you will, and to make sure I do this as good as I can. So I don't want to be distracted, but we will be taking questions. This session is, I think, a little over 12 minutes, and who knows how long I jibber jabber. But then from there, we'll take some questions and try to see if we can round out the hour plus and see how that goes. But second session, starting here, Law of One series on the Fringe. The Law of One, Session 2, recorded January 20th, 1981. Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and light of our infinite Creator. I am with this mind-body-spirit complex, which has offered itself for a channel. I communicate with you. Queries are in order in your projections of mind distortion at this time-space. Thusly, would I assure this group that my own social memory complex has one particular method of communicating with those few who may be able to harmonize their distortions with ours, and that is to respond to queries for information. We are comfortable with this format. May the queries now begin. Questioner. I'm guessing there are enough people who would understand that you are saying interested enough for us to make a book of communications with it, and I wondered if you would agree to this, us making a book, and if so, I was thinking that possibly a bit of historical background on yourselves would be in order. I am Ra. The possibility of communication, as you would call it, from the one to the one through distortion, acceptable for meaning, is the reason we're contacted this group. There are few who will grasp without significant distortion that which we communicate through this connection and this mind-body-spirit complex. However, if it be your desire to share our communications with others, we have the distortion towards a perception that this would be most helpful in regularizing and crystallizing your own patterns of vibrations upon the levels of experience which you call the life. If one is illuminated, are not all illuminated? Therefore, we are oriented towards speaking for you in whatever supply of speakingness you may desire. To teach learn is the law of one in one of the most elementary distortions. Questioner. Could you tell us something of your historical background, your earlier times and the illusions and the time-state contact, possibly your incarnation on this planet that you spoke of before and contact with earlier races on this planet? Then we would have something to start with writing this book. Ra. I am Ra. We are aware that you find our incarnate, as you call it, state of interest. We waited for a second query so as to emphasize that the time-space of several thousands of your years creates a spurious type of interest. Thus, in giving this information, we ask the proper lack of stress be placed upon our experiences in your local space-time. The teach learning, which is our responsibility, is philosophical rather than historical. We shall now proceed with your request, which is harmless if properly evaluated. We are those of the Confederation who 11,000 of your years ago came to two of your planetary cultures which were at that time closely in touch with the creation of the one Creator. It was our naive belief that we could teach learn by direct contact, and the free will distortions of individual feeling or personality were in no danger, we thought, of being disturbed, as these cultures were already closely aligned with an all-embracing belief in the liveness or liveness or consciousness of all. We came and were welcomed by the people whom we wished to serve. We attempted to aid them in technical ways having to do with healing of mind-body-spirit complex distortions through the use of crystal appropriate to the distortion, placed within a certain appropriate series of ratios of time-space material. Thus were the pyramids created. We found that the technology was reserved largely for those with the effectual mind-body distortion of power. This was not intended by the Law of One. We left your peoples. The group that was to work with those in the area of South America, as you call that portion of your sphere, gave up not so easily. They returned. We did not. However, we have never left your vibration due to our responsibility for the changes in consciousness we had first caused, and then found distorted in ways not relegated to the Law of One. We attempted to contact the rulers of the land to which we had come, the land which you call Egypt, or in some areas, the Holy Land. In the 18th dynasty, as it is known in your records of space-time distortions, we were able to contact a pharaoh, as you would call him. The man was small in life experience on your plane and was what this instrument would call a wanderer. Thus, this mind-body-spirit complex received our communication distortions and was able to blend his distortions with our own. This young entity had been given a vibratory complex of sound which vibrated in honor of a prosperous god, as this mind-body complex, which we call instrument for convenience, would call Amun. The entity decided that this name, being in honor of one among many gods, was not acceptable for inclusion in his vibratory sound complex. Thus, he changed his name to one which honored the sun disk. This distortion, called Aten, was a close distortion to our reality as we understand our own nature of mind-body-spirit complex distortions. However, it does not come totally into alignment with the intended teach-learning which was sent. This entity, Akhenaten, became convinced that the vibration of one was the true spiritual vibration, and thus decreed the Law of One. However, this entity's beliefs were accepted by very few. His priests gave lip service only, without the spiritual distortion towards seeking. The peoples continued in their beliefs. When this entity was no longer in this density, again, the polarized beliefs in the many gods came into their own and continued so until the one known as Muhammad delivered the peoples into a more intelligible distortion of mind-body-spirit relationships. Do you have a more detailed interest at this time? Questioner: we are very interested in this entire story that you have to tell and in getting into the Law of One in quite some detail. There will be several questions that I will ask as we go along that may or may not be related directly to understanding the Law of One. However, I believe that the proper way of presenting this as a teach-learning vehicle to the population of the planet that will read it at this time is to investigate different facets of what you tell us. You spoke of crystal healing. One other thing I might mention is that when the instrument becomes fatigued, we want to cut off communication and resume it at a later time after the instrument is recharged. And if the instrument is suitable at this time, I would like a little discussion of the crystal healing that you mentioned. Ra. I am Ra. The principle of crystal healing is based upon an understanding of the hierarchical nature of the structure of the illusion, which is the physical body, as you would call it. There are crystals which work upon the energies coming into the spiritual body. There are crystals which work upon the distortions from spirit to mind. There are crystals which balance the distortions between the mind and the body. All of these crystal healings are charged through purified channels. Without the relative crystallizations of the healer working with the crystal will not properly charged. The other ingredients is a proper alignment with the energy fields of the planet upon which you dwell, and the holistic or cosmic distortions or streamings which enter the planetary aura in such a manner that an appropriate ratio of shapes and placement within these shapes is of indicated aid in the untangling or balancing process. To go through the various crystals to be used would be exhaustive to this instrument, although you may ask us if you wish in another session. The delicacy, shall we say, of the choosing of the crystal is very critical, and in truth, a crystalline structure such as a diamond or ruby can be used by a purified channel who is filled with the love light of one in almost any application. This, of course, takes initiation, and there have never been many to persevere to the extent of progressing through the various distortions leaving which initiation causes. May we further inform you in a fairly brief way upon this or another subject. Questioner, yes. You've mentioned that the pyramids were an outgrowth of this. Could you expand a little on? Were you responsible for the building of the pyramid, and what was the purpose of the pyramid? I am Ra. The larger pyramids were built by our ability using the forces of one. The stones are alive. It has not been so understood by the mind-body-spirit distortions of your culture. The purpose of the pyramids were two. Firstly, to have a proper oriented place of initiation for those who wished to become purified or initiated channels for the law of one. 2. We wished then to carefully guide the initiates in developing a healing of the people whom they sought to aid and the planet itself. Pyramid after pyramid, charged by the crystalline and initiate, were designed to balance the incoming energies of the one creation with the many and multiple distortions of the planet, mind, body, spirit. In this effort, we were able to continue work that brothers within the Confederation had effected through building of the crystal-bearing structure, and thus complete a ring, if you will, of these about the Earth's, as this instrument would have us vibrate it, the surface. This instrument begins to lose energy. We ask for one more query or subject, and then we shall take our leave for this time-space. Questioner, you might mention there was originally a capstone on the pyramid at the top. What was it made of, and how you moved the heavy blocks to build the pyramid? What technique was used for that? Ra. I am Ra. I request that we be asked this question in our next work time, as you would term the distortion sharing that our energies produce. If you have a question about the proper use of this mind, body, spirit, we would appreciate you asking them now. Questioner, consider them asked. I don't have anything to go on. What is the proper use of this instrument? What should we do to maximize her ability to comfort, rejuvenation, etc.? Ra. I am Ra. We are pleased that you asked this question, for it is not our understanding that we have a right duty to share our perceptions on any subject but philosophy without direct question. However, this mind-body-spirit is not being correctly used and therefore is experiencing unnecessary distortions of the body in the area of fatigue. The vibrations may well be purified by simple tuning to the circle of one and the verbal vibration while doing so of the following dialogue. Question, what is the law? Answer, the law is one. Question, why are we here? Answer, we seek the law of one. Question, why do we seek Ra? Answer, Ra is a humble messenger of the law of one. Both together, rejoice then and purify this place in the law of one. Let no thought form enter the circle we have walked about this instrument, for the law is one. The instrument at this time should be in a trance. The proper alignment is the head pointed 20 degrees north by northeast. This is the direction from which the newer or new age distortions of love light, which are less distorted, are emanating from, and this instrument will find comfort therein. This is a sensitive instrument by which we mean the distortions which enter her mind-body-spirit complexes come from any of her senses. Thus, it is well to do the following. Place at the entity's head a virgin chalice of water. To the center, this book most closely aligned with the instrument's mental distortions, which are allied most closely with the law of one, that being the Bible that she touches most frequently. To the other side of the Bible, a small amount of scents or incense in a virgin censer. To the rear of the book, symbolizing one, opened to the Gospel of John, chapter 1, a white candle. The instrument would be strengthened by the wearing of a white robe. The instrument shall be covered and prone, the eyes covered. We feel that through this is a complex of activity, circumstance that may seem very distorted from a purposeful teach-learning experience. These elaborations on the technique of trance will ease the mind distortions of those about the instrument as they perceive improvement in the instrument's distortions with regard to fatigue. We add only that if these teach-learning sessions are held during time-space during which your sun body does not light your room, that is best to call the instrument before the lighting of the illuminatory mechanism. I am Ra. I leave you in the glory of peace of the one Creator. Rejoice in the love light, and go forth in the power of the one Creator. In joy, we leave you. Adonai. Recording some of that was like seriously word speed bumps. It was brutal. It's brutal, I'm telling you, folks. All right, so kind of starting in this is the second session, and they tease us already for the third, right? I know. They get heavy into the pyramids, and it's super interesting right now because the pyramids are kind of a big topic. So they're, of the time of making this video, anywho, or the liveness of this, we are going through a very similar exposure. Now, there's a lot of opinions all over the place. One thing that I also kind of want to tie in early just a little bit after spending a lot of time with this and coming to terms with a lot of things. I think the term or name Thoth or Toth, or it's pronounced differently, but Thoth is the individual with the bird head and a man body. Many suspect that is likely Ra. And he is Ra. That was the energy he came in as. He became Thoth. He was the one that actually created the pyramids, they say. We'll get into stuff. They don't ever tie it in any of the Ra's law of one stuff. But I do think there's a possible connection there. All right, so cover just a few things. I got, 5 things, and then we'll take questions if there are any. If not, we'll have a good Thursday night. Filters. I want to let everybody know. Everybody can channel. Everybody can channel. Channeling's awesome. I kind of learned it and started playing with it after I was reading Conversations with God, I'll be honest. Conversations with God, basically Neil Donald Walsh started just writing words. And he was like kind of bitching. And he used to go to this yellow legal pad and he'd just talk and just bitch. He'd just, everything sucks and there's all this, homelessness and people are angry in the world. And why is this? This is just stupid. And he was writing a letter to God because typically he'd write letters to people and he'd just throw it away. Well, today he was pissed at the world and he was writing a letter to God. And when he was done writing, his pen sort of stayed there. And it wrote, "Were you just venting or did you want an answer?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd like an answer. That'd be cool." "All right. Well, here's what I can tell you." And he began a conversation. It's called auto writing. You can do auto talking. But it's a concept of learning how to disconnect. It's actually stream of consciousness, they call it. You can take an improv class. You'll learn this technique. Meditation does help if you can learn to control the noise, which is helpful. So meditation's more of, I think, a tool to help kind of keep you clean, if you will. But ultimately, you do have to learn kind of how to remove your filters. Your filters paint what you see. Remote viewing, you can be the best remote viewer in the world, but if you've got really crazy filters, and I'm not trying to point fingers at any specific kind, but if you have really crazy filters about certain things, it's going to put a shade on whatever you look at. It's got to pass through that filter. So the trick for us is to remove as many of the filters as we can and try to get as clean a view as possible. And honestly, in my opinion, what I've learned thus far, we'll see. I'm sure talk to me in a year, I'll know more. But it's about letting go of preconceived notions. As I've said many times, and this is really what I'm kind of getting to when I say it, the more I've learned that I know, the more I know that I don't know. The more you realize that you've kind of figured out, holy crap, there's this craziness all around me, the more you realize, wow, there's constantly crazy. So it's an issue of you tuning into your own specific part of that frequency. What are those little static balls? I forget what they're called, right? You got the vacuum inside, the little xenon balls, or the plasma ball, they call it, right? And you put your hand on it, and everything go right towards it, right? Like the Force in Star Wars. And it's kind of like that. Like the universe kind of, the stuff that you need once you focus, we're all hanging in the same little weird thing, but, you put your hand on the plasma ball and suddenly, you know what you got to learn. So filters are a funny thing. He brought up South America. Oh, that was one of the other places they went. I kind of think that might be the Mayans. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that was kind of where I was at the time. They also, there was one in there where he talked about defining themselves as a wanderer, the individual that was the Egyptian, I believe. And a wanderer is something that I kind of have sort of an affinity to as well. But a wanderer is a beautiful thing. It's just an individual that's kind of gone to a lot of different places and learned how to interact with a lot of different people, races, planets, whatever. I don't know even how that even works per se, but you become adept at adapting. And so the wanderer concept would make sense because it's typically going to be these types of people that have extraterrestrial experience, for lack of a better way to put it. It's literally spending time in other systems outside of Earth. Charging crystals, they talk about that. There's a lot of people that do it. Again, this is why I brought up filters first. Charging crystals is awesome. We've got some really good people in our audience. One in particular that I'm thinking of that is just, I think, got really good energy. Is a good healer. I'd actually talked to her one time about helping a friend of ours. And so there are people that you know they've spent the time and they've done the cleaning, like Trump has talked about the forest cleaning, right? Like you got to rake the forest. Well, kind of, right? You got to rake the consciousness. You got to rake what's in there and get the muck out, because filters, it's causing problems. So you want somebody that's kind of got a groovy life going on, being the person that's charging your crystal. It's the best example I can give you. I've seen a lot of people that talk about, I'm all into meditation, man. I'm like, yeah, and I like meditate and I can like float, right? It's awesome. And then you see their life and their boyfriend's like a freak and they've got this little weird thing going, like they got all these problems, right? Like, so you're like, do I really want to have somebody with this much chaos in their life? Even though they say nice things, do I really want that chaos in my life? No. So look to see what you're getting. A lot of us can do this. Charging crystals is a very important thing. Certainly, like they said, diamonds, quartz, there's a lot. I mean, it depends. You can do a little bit of research online, and you're going to find different crystals. Finding somebody that can charge it, I highly recommend you put your own vibe into it, but you got to be in a good place. So again, where your filters are at. If not, if you've got a super spiritual friend, you know, that one of them people that just like totally is like awesome all the time, one of those people might want to be willing to help you, and they probably will. So ask them if they can put some of their awesome, loving light juice inside of that magic moment. And you know, if there's an intention that you're shooting for, have that programmed into it, and you'll be surprised the power of crystals. Channeling takes energy. There's a couple points in there where Carla gets a little bit on the slide. You know, like I probably fell asleep, in all honesty. And so when energies kind of get weird, you can have some problems with the general channeling situation, right? Like, so that's kind of one of the things that can happen. It's one of the many reasons, especially for people that have spent time doing any of this kind of stuff, energy work, certainly, meditation, channeling, all that kind of nonsense, all this stuff. When you spend some time doing it and get kind of comfortable with it, you start to recognize when somebody really goes to great lengths. And so they even talk about at the end, all the precision of where these little virgin things, everything's got to be a virgin, by the way. What the frick? But all these little virgin things all over the place. Water, by the way, too. They talk about water, virgin water, not that whore water. No, you don't want any of that. Virgin water. But you charge it. Water can be charged. There's all sorts of studies. This is a really good thing. It's the same concept, essentially, but just use it more intentionally. You'll be surprised. But it's the same concept of prayer before meals, like before food, right? Bless us, Lord, for this. These are gifts which we are about to receive. Like this is the one we used to always say. Like I got to, you know, I can't not say it. But many people have their blessings before you eat. It's because you want to impose that energy into the food, whatever it is. And water is amazing. Its crystalline structure, its ability to hold energy. You can program water and then drink it. So you want to heal, folks. Drink your healing water. It's many things you can do, but mind over matter is a big part of Law of One. A big part of what I'm here to help with. I do manifesting. I've been doing it before I even learned Law of One. I was teaching manifesting. The whole the law of what is it? John Blank. The attraction, right? Law of attraction. There's so many laws, by the way. Law of confusion, which is always helpful because it gives people a way out. So again, a lot of things. And then I think I had one questions. Yeah, this is important too. So a lot of us have to get better at asking questions within our own life. You must ask Source, God, universe, Christ, whoever, whatever you want to call it, paint it, whatever. Ask them questions. Say, hey, show me something. And do this often. Once you get your answer, all right, and be like, holy crap, that works. Yes. And then do it again and again and again and again. And you'll actually start to find the little markers in life that get you to the next place that you need to get to. Because we got changes happening, folks. And a lot of people aren't going to figure it out. But much like, children in an airplane, when you lose pressurization and the mask drops down, you got to get yours on first before you can help anybody else, or you're not going to be able to help anybody else, and you're not going to make it either. We have to make sure we're okay. It's like helping a drowning victim. Be really good at what you're doing, or else they're going to pull you down. Right? So we are, at least most of my audience, but certainly I think people that are starting to learn Law of One, if you're asking these questions in your life at this point, yeah, you're in a very interesting place. You're in the top 5% right now, top 10%, small number of people are sitting here right now realizing, holy crap, I've got a lot to say about my life and what I experience. And when you take ownership of your life, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. Now, again, where we are in that process, how far along we are down the many years of bad thinking that's maybe caused some health problems. Again, there's a lot of things. But it's never impossible to turn anything around. The SR-71, Blackbird. It's fastest plane pretty much ever. That we know of. I mean, probably the new F-47 is likely faster, but whatever. This thing, literally, if it started a full U-turn and it hit the border of Ohio, and I'm guessing the long way, right? Hits Ohio. I don't know why it's at Ohio, but that's where it's at. And it's going to flip a U-turn. It literally could not pull that off within the state. It would leave the state a little before it finally managed to come back around. That's how fast it's going, and that's how crazy hard it can be to spin around a ship that's gone the wrong way. I certainly liken it to our country sometimes. But in your lives, you can do things much quicker, and you can start to see progress day to day. And that is one of the things where when you start noticing your life and what's being shown to you, and you start interacting back, now we're on the same page. Now you're going to start into this weird new world. That, by the way, is very exciting. So questions are important. If you're not sure how something works, but you're curious, ask the question. If you're working with a friend and they're offering something, and they said, hey, you go, will you help? And they're like, yeah, totally. Let me know. And then you don't ever ask them questions. Right? Don't expect people to come find you. This is your path. This is your journey. You might have some people that you need to put a mask on. I get you. But ultimately, we have to make sure we're okay first. And again, service to self, service to others, or a combination of all the above. Sometimes you need to worry about self only. This is the bigger journey, the bigger purpose. And this is why, in my opinion, these number 108 sessions or whatever it is are so extremely important to me. And why I want to teach this. You know, they say there's 3 ways you learn something, but I disagree. There's a 4th way you learn something. So the 3 ways they say to learn something is you watch somebody do it, you hear somebody talk about it, or talk, right? You hear it, you do it, right? You sit down in front of whatever it is and do it yourself. And the 4th one that nobody talks about, and the most important, really, when Law of One, teach, learn, teach, you have to teach it. When you can teach something to somebody, you've now learned it. It forces you to have to explain it. It forces you to regurgitate it. It forces you to learn it. It's awesome when we finally partake in life. So again, I've talked about the ripples we make. When you're consciously making ripples, you could make it to 5 people. Your 5 people ripple is going to be more powerful than a lot of people's 5,000 person ripple. You guys are my audience. You guys are the ones, people that are learning this right now. You're the ones that are changing the world. So this is important information. I know I've got, hopefully we'll see what kind of questions. We'll take a little time. I don't want to go too terribly far. I don't have any text, so I'll pull the thing over. We'll see just if it, maybe we'll just say hi to people, because I've literally been trying to, not look at this. This is so distracting, and I hope if anybody did donate, and please, if you don't donate, if you suddenly, feel guilty or something, no, I just don't. If I missed anything that dried up, I apologize. I love you guys always. I don't do this for God's. This is why I'm here, folks. This law of one is why I'm here, almost completely. Dawn one. I used to listen to Dan radio style in the '80s. Any relations? I don't think it was me. No. I mean, no. Yeah, I was even before I was kind of doing radio. Radio was more once. I want to say my first year doing it at all at my college. That was probably '93, around there. So no. Yeah, Warhammer. Thank you for being here. What do we got? I don't know. Rosa Keys. She's happy she's here. Maggie is my mission. That's unquestionable. Tattoo Tammy might have been the person I was talking about. Thank you for being here, sweetheart. She does a lot of really, really, really cool stuff. Tattoo Tammy is a very, very groovy energy person. She's one of, there's a lot of people that are really close to me right now. She's got a very, she's like spiritual family. It's interesting. At least that's how it feels to me, Tammy. I'm not trying to be weird. And she's got a lovely husband. I'm not trying to get any sort of weird at all. But there's a very groovy vibe that I get from her, and just always have. Epstein did not kill himself. What? Says who? That's ridiculous. They told it. I mean, they obviously tell us the truth all the time. All the time. Da, 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 da. Thank you for your positive, kind words. Great show. Back to you. Is Ra and channeling like Abraham Hicks? Yeah, that's a pretty good call. Verdery. Abraham Hicks, law of, what was she? Law of attraction. I like her. I forgot it with what's the name of the dude or the person she channels? I forget. She never really calls it that because that's like, it's kind of, you get poo-pooed if you call it channeling like that. It's like one of those conspiracy. Anyway, but again, every one of us can channel. Problem is, when you open it up, it's like turning on a microphone and be like, anybody that's out there can walk up and start blah, 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 blah. So you got to be careful. It's like, it's not quite like a Ouija board, but kind of. Your Ouija board's a very ritualistic. That's why I say there's a difference. Channeling is you're opening up to people, things, energies, whatever, chatting with you. You'll figure it out. The good ones, the bad ones, you can tell. Good ones always kind of come in with the sort of loving vibe, the positive things, the way they phrase things. It's just more of a positive thing. It's the ones that start playing guilt, subconscious, any of this sort of weird controlling mechanisms that tend to work for some of us. Those are usually when you're getting more of the negative entities coming in. And so again, it's one of those things where you can kind of see where you're at. You can heal, self-heal even for that matter. There's a lot of things you can do. Meditation definitely helps. But again, the brighter you turn on your light, the more bugs that are going to fly towards it, folks. That's part of having a bright light, or a light bright, if you remember those good old days, right? Ran out of paper, it just sucked, and you had to reuse the same paper, and you're like trying to poke new holes in the same jacked up paper. Yeah, it didn't work well. That's all I can remember from that standpoint. It's like trying to make a circle with an Etch-a-Sketch. It sucked. Always wanted to be able to. So yeah, let's see. Thank you guys all. Well, yeah, we're probably in a good place. I'm going to probably close out, I guess, with the intro, because I don't really have an outro at the moment. I didn't think that far. It was kind of funny. I had everything else covered. I voiced over and edited everything, except I was like, oh, outro. I remembered that today, just right before I went live, because that's, how it works. All said. Prozac Projectile, nice to have you as well. Thank you guys all for being here. How does this relate to God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit? Valvorex, we might get there, or maybe this isn't the material for you. I don't know. We'll see where you come with that. I'm not going to try to connect all those dots. What I'm presenting to you is Law of One, and I'm not trying to make that fit your particular version of reality. What I'm trying to do is present the Law of One. I hope that makes sense in time. If not, it's okay. It's okay. I love you guys. We are going to do the best we can with what we got. Let's put it that way. And I think we're making a lot of progress. I think a lot of things are happening, and I think we're coming up to some serious crunch times as far as getting enough of us thinking properly to pull this off. That's all I got to say. It's going to be a group effort, and it's going to take a lot of people. I think we're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. So we'll see what happens. But again, a lot of sessions. We got at least a year, I hope. We did the first 2 sessions today. Next week on Thursday, same bad time, same bad channel, we're going to do the next 2 sessions, and we're going to keep rocking and rolling. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you always for co-creating with me in this experience at this space-time continuum. This what do they call it? Yeah, space-time works. All said. I love you guys. Cruising out with our intro right here. It's the Law of One on the Fringe.
Meditation is supposed to be fun. It's not something you do as a grim duty. The trouble with religion as we know it is that it is so mixed up with grim duties. We do it because it's good for you. It's a kind of self-punishment. Well, meditation, when correctly done, has nothing to do with all that. It's a kind of digging the present. It's a kind of grooving with the eternal now. And brings us into a state of peace where we can understand that the point of life, the place where it's at, is simply here and now.
This moment is the creation of the universe. It's starting now. If you look back and wonder whether there was a big bang a long time ago, all you'll see is vanishing traces. The big bang is happening now. This is when the world begins. You're doing it. Only you're not doing it by straining. A you deeper than the straining you is doing all this. The same you that is growing your hair and coloring your eyes and making your thumbprints and all that. You don't think about it. You don't strain muscles to do it. But that is what is creating the world. Here it comes. Now. So instead of thinking that the past is the reality which explains everything that happens now, let's look at now.